Canoe camping, a perfect way to enjoy a weekend in the wilderness. It's also a great way to develop outdoor skills as a group and learn in a stress-free environment. On this trip, we became familiar with essential equipment and techniques used in canoe camping, some of which we'll explore in this video. We'll start with the three most important pieces of equipment utilized on this trip. You may have noticed that everyone in canoes is wearing a PFD, or personal flotation device. While we're on the water, this is the most important piece of equipment that we have, as it'll enable us to float should our canoes tip. PFDs are most effective when worn properly, and making sure that your PFD is rated for your size and weight is absolutely crucial. To ensure a proper fit, you can firmly grasp the shoulder straps and tug vertically, and if the shoulder straps do not pass your ears, then the PFD fits. If the shoulder straps can be elevated above your ears, you should seek a smaller PFD or further tighten your straps. The second most important piece of equipment we'll use on the water is the paddle, which is responsible for the canoe's propulsion through the water. It is composed of 5 main parts: the grip, shaft, the throat, the blade, and the tip, and should not be let go of even if the canoe flips.
I am sorry. Sometimes it hurts so badly I must cry out loud.
The third most essential piece of equipment for our trip is the canoe itself. The canoe facilitates fast transport through water, and since we won't have to carry any of the gear we'll put in the canoe, it allows us to carry more gear than we would usually bring camping, along with heavier gear that we normally would not be able to bring with us. Here we can see an illustrated diagram of a canoe with most of its components labeled. The gunnels, or the top sides of the canoe, are braced by thwarts, and the middle thwart is known as the yoke. Some of the canoes that we used had a misshapen yoke to accommodate for the shape of the back of the neck, to make it more comfortable to carry the canoe from one location to another, in a process known as portaging. Before portaging your canoe, make sure that you're about to travel on a sturdy surface, which is one of the principles of leave no trace that our class is following. You can start by lifting the canoe and balancing it on your knee for support, while then trying to get the canoe up above your head and balancing the yoke across your shoulders to evenly distribute the weight. Once the canoe is on top of your head, it may be difficult to keep the canoe balanced, so extend your arms forward to exert downward pressure on the bow to keep the canoe level. The aluminum canoes we used did not have a shaped yoke like the fiberglass canoes we had did, so it may be a little difficult to keep the canoe balanced between the bow and stern. If you have trouble keeping the canoe steady, ask a friend to help you hold the bow down while you portage the canoe. Before leaving on your canoe trip, it's important to make sure that you have the proper wicking, insulating, and shell layers. If you're afraid of getting your extra layers when your bag wet, use a dry bag like the one Joel is instructing on now. Before we got ready to leave for our trip, we made sure that everyone was familiar with the different stroke techniques. Joel is seen here demonstrating a forward stroke, which is a simple front-to-back motion to propel the canoe forward. While performing a forward stroke, it is important to keep the paddle as vertical as you possibly can to maximize your energy output.
What have you got to lose?
When attempting wide turns, you can use the sweep stroke to alter the course of your canoe drastically. This can be performed by placing the paddle near the bow of the canoe and sweeping in a rainbow-like fashion all the way towards the stern. The wider the sweep, the more effective your turn will be. You may find yourself in a situation where you need to propel your canoe sideways, such as for rafting up. You can use the in-water recovery to do this. Simply extend your paddle and pull your paddle towards you in the water, twist it, and recover. Notice that the paddle does not leave the water for this stroke. The paddler towards the stern of the canoe can utilize the J stroke to compensate and make course corrections without having to switch sides they're paddling on. This can be completed by paddling in a J-shaped motion to create drag on the side of the paddle. While on the water, it's important to make sure that all of your gear is in the middle of the canoe and that the weight is evenly distributed to prevent the canoe from tipping. Notice how when Dave steps out of the canoe, Jeffrey holds it stable and Dave has the leg inside the canoe over the keel with his weight distributed in the center to keep it from tipping over to either side. Once safely ashore, we stow the canoes in a location that they'll be safe overnight out of the water. Group gear is unloaded and organized, and the kitchen is set up at a lean-to. Once the group gear was taken care of, individuals set up their own campsites. It is important to make sure that you camp on flat ground, and to check the area above for tree limbs that could possibly fall, commonly known as widowmakers.
Chestnut brown canary, ruby-throated sparrow, sing the song, don't be long, thrill me to the marrow. Voices of the angel ring around the moonlight, asking me, say she's so free, how can you catch the sparrow?
When you're finished setting up your shelter, it is important to make sure that all stakes and lines are secured and tight in case you experience any bad weather. Furthermore, you can bomb-proof your gear by making sure that all of your gear is either on your person, in your tent, or in your backpack, which should be in your tent anyway. This can prevent you from losing equipment either in the wilderness or to the elements. Once the shelters are complete, we can prepare for dinner. Meals are an excellent opportunity to facilitate group interaction and development in both their preparation and in the meal itself. Group meals bring the members together and serve as a time to relax and reflect on the day, which facilitates a perfect time for a debrief. In order to prepare these meals, we need to be familiar with the camp stoves. Alina can be seen here with the heat reflector, which reflects heat from the bottom of the stove towards the top of it. It also prevents heat transfer to the ground, minimizing our impact on the environment. It is important to unscrew the cap of the fuel bottles pointing away from you in case of expanding gases that may spray fuel out of the bottle. And make sure that the cap is placed back into the stove bag in order to prevent it from being lost or damaged. Here we see the stove pump mechanism, which is used to provide pressure into the bottle to pump fuel into the stove. It is inserted along with its tube into the fuel bottle and firmly screwed into place. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Once your stove pump is in place, you can insert the stove into the pump, making sure that it is inserted all the way, and then flipping the bail to secure the stove to the pump. Once your stove is assembled, you can pump the stove between 30 to 50 times or until the pump provides firm resistance, preferably until firm resistance is met. Once your stove is assembled, you can prime it by filling the bottom pan with just a teaspoon of fuel and then promptly shutting off the fuel line. When you're ready, you can light the bottom pan aflame, and the small flame produced here will heat up the gas in the fuel line and vaporize it, preparing it to be burned in the stove. This is what produces the blue jet flame we see when the stove is ready. When the fire in the bottom pan starts to die down, we can open the fuel line, as the gas in the line is probably already vaporized and ready to be burned in the stove. Here we can see the results of a properly lit stove, a perfect blue flame. Once the stoves are set up, you can now begin cooking and preparing hot water for the group, which everyone just can't wait to get their hands on. In the event that hot water is not available for drinking, we can use water filters to fill our Nalgene's up. Overall, I'd have to say that this class has proved to be a valuable learning experience. It facilitated plenty of interpersonal group communication, the trip provided us with plenty of canoe experience and knowledge, excellent opportunities at viewing wildlife. We learned how to handle emergencies, and we learned how to overcome them as a team. I learned to keep an open mind and always try new things, even when they don't seem so appealing. And we learned to follow the leave no trace principles to keep the environment pristine for its next visitors that could be just like us.
Wishing I was deep in the water somewhere. Got the blue sky breeze and it don't seem fair. Only worry in the world is the tide gonna reach my chair. Sunrise, there's a fire in the sky. Never been so happy, never felt so high. And I think I might have found me my own kind of paradise.